This week on the podcast, it's slim pickings racing news-wise, so I talk with Joshua Kerr from the Twitter community. He's a sports writer for The Raw. Shout out to Jawad, who is also a writer for the great publication The Raw. Joshua is a podcaster with his own podcast called Sportaholic, and as you'll tell, he is a very passionate sports fan. Enjoy, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Regen, the e-racing podcast. I am your host, Dino, and joining me, Joshua Kerr, sports writer from The Raw.
Everybody. Hello, everybody. I got in there. That wasn't good.
It's all good. It's all good. How are you this morning?
I'm all right. Thanks very much, Dean.
Good, good. Thank you for making the time to come on. I know the time difference is quite a big thing, as I am based in New Zealand, and you're in the UK, of course.
Yeah, it's currently 9:30 in the morning here.
9:30 in the morning. Well, I guess, would you normally be at work if it wasn't for the circumstances in the world at the moment?
It's the Easter holidays at the moment. I would still be in sixth form. I'd probably still be revising for my exams, but they've been cancelled, of course, because of the coronavirus and lockdown and whatnot.
Right, okay. So you would be busy otherwise, but
yeah,
that's great that you can join me this evening. So, let's get into the show. Firstly, I want to give a shout out to Drillers Esports. They were at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. In the pro category, Lappin's P13, Williams P16, and DNF for both Zuba and Henry Sinek. And in the academy, Robbins with a P2, so congratulations there. Palasek, Wierzbicki, Rusinak and Reed, a little bit down the order, Palasek P6, Wierzbicki in P9, which is great from him, Rusinak P13 and Reed with a DNF, very unlucky there. So, Josh, I'm not sure if you know much about the podcast or what we do, but we do something called Media of the Week. So this is either something you've listened to, watched, heard. We've been having quite a few music ones of late, but hopefully you have one for us.
Yes, I do. I've got one lined up.
Excellent.
Oh, do you want me to go with that?
Yep. Okay. You tell us about it.
Okay, I've first of all, because I thought, not really sure what to pick. I thought I'd go with music because with TV and stuff, because I made my decision yesterday, so if there was something on TV last night, I'd suddenly go, yeah, I'll put that in. So I went for music, and I picked the Chats, their new album, High Risk Behaviour. They're a punk rock band from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. They actually call it Shed Rock, which I think is quite cool. And it's a 14-track album. It's only half an hour, but each track's quite short, and I don't know if the intention is it's supposed to be funny, but I get a laugh out of it, which it makes me happy, and that's quite good. Well, we need a bit of a lift in this time.
Absolutely. I did listen to one track, and it was all about different alcohol, and I thought, oh, that's a bit interesting. It was quite funny, actually.
Yeah.
Having pints of Guinness in the morning and all those sort of things, yeah. It's pretty not my sort of music, but again, very, very cool and definitely worth a listen.
It's not really my sort of music, but I just heard one track on something I was listening to and I found it. I put it in my playlist and it's been on my playlist for a while.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, my media of the week, I am playing through Far Cry 3 again. I didn't get very far last time, but it is a brilliant game. And I'll just quickly talk about the opening. because it is a bit of a masterpiece, really. So the game opens up and you are in this cage, but before then you are basically on holiday with a group of friends. But then it cuts to this psycho guy who's captured you, and you get away, and then there's like a chase scene in the forest and you're running, and it is brilliantly done. So yeah, I'm currently playing through that, and I'm also watching Westworld. I'm sure some of you out there will also be watching Westworld. If you haven't seen it, go and check that out as well. Have you seen Westworld?
No, I haven't seen Westworld. I'm not really a big TV watcher normally because normally when I was at sixth form, I just didn't really want to commit to anything because sometimes there's like sudden changes. You get lots of essays at one time, and you haven't really got the time to commit to a big series.
Yeah, that's all good.
And of course, Formula One, watching lots of Formula One and old races and whatnot.
So we'll move into the news, and Formula E has partnered with UNICEF. So Formula E partners with UNICEF to support global coronavirus appeal and to keep children around the world safe, healthy, and learning in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. The hashtag Race Against COVID. So this partnership will focus on keeping children around the world healthy and learning in the face of this coronavirus, with funds being directed at projects such as the contributing to remote learning programs and the supply of essential protective equipment for hospital staff and care workers on the front line. So this initiative, absolutely brilliant, and it's good to see that in the face of this global pandemic that Formula E is doing something with their reach and helping, this disruption around the globe in any way that they can. So really good from them. That was off the official Formula E website, so go and have a read of that. So also now let's move into the general chat. So firstly, Josh, your podcast, Sportaholic, what is it about? Obviously a lot of different sports, but what do you talk about mostly in Sportaholic?
Well, normally, of course, because at the moment there's not much sport to talk about because of the lockdown, but normally it'll be mainly Formula One because that's my main sport that I watch. So if you're a Formula One fan, you'll be in the right place. Maybe some cricket chat sneaked in as well, which may be a good thing if you're English, and maybe not if you're not English sometimes, depending on what's going on. And then, of course, whenever we've got an Olympics or a World Cup, we'll have a focus on that. Those big sporting events that we all love. Right.
Formula One. So I love Formula One. I've chatted to a couple of Formula One podcasters, and we've done a few things like having the Formula E drivers, which ones deserve a shot in Formula One, and there's been some really cool discussion around that. So I'm a big fan of Formula One. So and I've got to say, the podcast, I recognise that it takes a lot as a solo podcaster to be able to talk into the microphone. I've tried it a couple of times on this podcast earlier, and I've done a pretty poor job, but I've got a great respect for solo podcasters. Formula One, who is your favourite driver, if you've got one?
Max Verstappen is my favourite one. If anybody who knows me in some way or another will know that I'm a Max Verstappen fan.
Right. So Max is obviously number one. Do you? Red Bull is obviously the favoured team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because my mate and I like Lando Norris as well, so there's a little bit of love for McLaren as well, but it's mainly Red Bull.
Yeah, I've got to say, McLaren's sort of one of those teams where if it's not your first team, it's sort of mostly always your second team. And it just and Williams, but I've got to say McLaren have some top line drivers now, and in Sainz and Norris, obviously. Where do you think they can get if Formula One starts back this season? Where do you think McLaren will be?
I think they should be aiming for best of the rest. I'm not sure whether they can make the leap to the top three under the current regulations. I'm not really sure about the new regulations. Of course, with the new regulations being delayed now, that makes it even more difficult to predict. But I think if McLaren can go best of the rest again, then that will be a good result for them.
Yeah, I think so too. And are you looking forward to the Renault partnership? Obviously, Ricciardo and Ocon. How do you think they'll get on together?
Can I say, it's like, I tweeted about this when I replied to you. It's like the first day back at school when you kind of are trying to remember the stuff you probably should remember. So my knowledge is a bit rusty because it's been a while. I'll just say that. But with Renault, I mean, Ocon, if he's going to perform as well as we saw him at Racing Point, it's really nice to see him back in Formula One. I think he'll be able to give Ricciardo a run for his money. But it depends. If Renault have a season like last year, it was a bit on-off, where they'd have good weekends where they'd be solidly in the points, and then some weekends where they'd be out of the points and not doing very well. It's that kind of thing with the midfield. And we saw with Ricciardo last season in Singapore, I remember, where he was just making diving overtakes into turn 4 and then ended up taking bits of front wing with him and then having to pit. It's stuff like that. It depends on Ricciardo's aggression, depends on whether he'll get up through the field.
Yeah, I guess Ricciardo used to a car that probably had a lot more downforce. You could maybe just chuck it up the inside. The Renault, not so much. But yeah, will be interesting to see what steps they take. I did have a message on a Facebook Formula E group, and there was some talk about potentially going to Silverstone or Brands Hatch in Formula E. Formula E obviously doesn't race on traditional circuits, but would you like to see that? Or is it not really something that would spin your wheels compared to going to Formula One in Silverstone?
Well, the Formula E cars are slower than the Formula One cars, so I actually don't know how the lap would be around there. It would probably be over 2 minutes if they go the full Grand Prix circuit. So that could be a thing to bear in mind. I don't know if that would affect anything, but it doesn't really follow the Formula E that I know, where you go to the city centres and take your sustainability message with it. That's always what it's been for me, so I think it would be a bit strange to take Formula E to what is essentially a airfield in the middle of Northamptonshire. Yeah,
and Brands Hatch, do you think it could work there?
I suppose it's the same argument as Silverstone. I mean, there's nothing to say that it won't work because it's racing, and the Formula E drivers always give us a good race anyway, I'm sure, if they're on Silverstone and Brands Hatch, but I would prefer it to be in cities, really.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the harder things to bring back into Formula E in the short term especially. So obviously they've got sponsors and a lot of different parties to keep happy, and getting it on TV, and I think it's probably going to be difficult to have it in city centres this year, potentially.
They might have a problem with London, I know definitely, because they're currently using the Excel Centre, which they were going to use as the season finale originally under the original calendar. That's been turned into a hospital, so of course that's out of the question really for the coming months, and then transforming it back from the temporary hospital to the exhibition centre.
Cool. So Are you an esports fan? We'll move into that. Obviously, we have the link of the Drillers Esports, and I've been talking with Chris about watching a few other series from the race, the official F1 and Veloce. Have you been following any of these, Josh?
I've gone into esports now because there's no actual racing, but I watched the race on the opening weekend. I haven't really been following that. I have gone into the Supercars esports series now, the Virgin Australia Supercars. That started last week. They race on iRacing, and they've got all the drivers from the Supercars Championship doing that. And that's brilliant. If you watch the first weekend, especially the race in Monza, that was absolute chaos at turn 1, going into the chicane.
Yeah, myself, I haven't really watched a lot apart from Formula Sim racing. So I had a look at the Gran Turismo World Series, and that was quite cool. But I haven't had a chance to check out the supercars as yet, so I might have to get on that. Also, as I've been talking about over last podcasts, Marbula 1. Have you been watching Marbula 1?
I have not been watching Marbula 1.
Okay. Do you know about marble racing?
I heard a little bit about it on your last podcast, but I don't really know that much about it.
It's a real hoot. It is just so much fun. The tracks are really, how do I describe them? Real funky little tracks, and this qualifying, quite high production value, and it's even been on ESPN. So it's really
They've made
cool.
it.
They have made it, absolutely. So, spoilers, the Savage Speeders with Speedy took out the championship. My favourite team is the Hazers. And if you are into marble racing, then there is and have popped up marble racing podcasts. So I will link a couple in the show notes because they are really fun. And these podcasts, they don't come at it as something fun and quirky. They're really serious about how they talk about the marbles. So it is from a very considered and serious point of view that these are, beings that can change their behavior.
Oh, I do like that. That is brilliant. And it's a nice thing, really, to just treat it like it. Why shouldn't we be treating marble racing like it's a regular sport? It's a nice thing as well.
Yeah, I think there was a company that also you could bet on it.
The betting companies have to get involved if it's getting popular. That's my cynical view.
Yep. And also, I've been checking out 3D Botmaker Diecast Rally. There's been a couple of articles. I think Drive Tribe has an article out on the 3D Botmaker Racing Rally series. That is another one that's really cool to watch. And it's the production value on that is absolutely brilliant. So 3D and 2D, they are great hosts. Quite funny, actually. And I recommend that fully as well. Is there anything else you would like to talk about, just in general, that you've got saved up for a podcast that you'd like to ask me, or just about Formula E in general? Anything?
Well, I was probably going to get more into Formula E as the season went on, but of course the series got postponed and suspended with the coronavirus outbreak. It's a bit funny with some of the time zones, especially with the American races, so it can be a bit difficult to follow sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
There's a few clashes with Formula 1, which is a bit annoying as well, sometimes, especially when we get into the European season.
Yes, yep, that does happen a bit. But they try their best. Obviously, you've got DTM and WEC as well to deal with, because it's smack bang in that season as well. Very, very soon into that season, and then you've got drivers like Brendan Hartley and who else? Is Nico Muller doing DTM still? Probably. I mean, there's a lot of drivers that do both. I know Sam Bird is in the Ferrari as well, and it is a bit of a mission, I'm sure.
Because I love watching it. It's a great series, but I'm not as into it as I am Formula One. So I know the drivers. I can get the gist of it, but at the end of the day, it's great racing, and I love to sit down and watch it when I can.
What do you think of attack mode? Cool or gimmick?
I mean, it's cool in terms of the strategy it creates, because of course there's no pit stops now. So attack mode's a great thing. I don't think it's a gimmick. It's kind of like DRS in Formula One, but just for 4 minutes of more power.
No, I have to say, At the start of when attack mode was introduced, I sort of thought about it and thought, nah, that can't work that great. But after a couple of absolutely stellar races, you had to really take your hat off to Formula E with such a great initiative. And I don't think in the start they explained it very well. But once you get the hang of it, of what's happening, the strategy behind it is just immense, and without pit stops, which probably a good thing that they went with more safety concerns as you're racing to change cars, and obviously there is a little bit of a disadvantage to the taller drivers. They can't just, they're not very Sam Bird-esque. They can't just quickly out, jump from one car to the next, in, belts on and away. It does take a little bit more for them to hop out and hop in the cars. So, I think it's a great thing, and I hope it stays for quite a few more seasons.
But as well as only having one car, it's a show of the progression of electric motors and the development. So you can have a battery that will last the full race, and I think that's good, as well as with the electric cars as well, with extending battery ranges now as much as possible.
Yes, I think my wife is waiting until we can drive to Nelson from Christchurch, which is about 5 hours. So if we can drive 5 hours without charging, I think that's when she'll be sold. I can't afford a Tesla at the moment, which would probably almost get there, but hopefully they come down in price.
Yeah, they should come down in price because it's new. They always do it higher price for the early adopters, and then it will start to come down as there's more cars in the market. It's supply and demand, that kind of thing.
So you've been watching a little bit of Formula E. There's been a few races now, 5. Who do you think will win the championship?
Oh, don't ask me questions like that.
However this championship looks after we get back racing.
Oh, this is terrible, because I'm now trying to think what happened to the last, because of all this lockdown. March felt like it was a year long or something, so it feels like ages ago when it was the last Formula E race. I suppose if I'm going for I think it could be quite like a general thing, but I know Da Costa's doing well.
Yeah, he's doing very well.
So I mean, you wouldn't put it past it, but it's so unpredictable, Formula E, that we could get to Well, I mean, I don't know what the season's going to look like when we get back underway, but you can get to the final race of the season, and the person leading the championship at the beginning doesn't always win at the end of the race. So it's one of those championships, and that's the beauty of it, really, that it's so unpredictable.
Well, I'll give you a bit of perspective. So the top 8, really the top 10 are probably still in it. Sebastian Buemi might be a little bit far away with 27 points. Sam Bird, 29, 30, Oliver Rowland. Jean-Eric Verne, the reigning champion, 31. Eduardo Mortara is doing a stellar job with 32. Stoffel Van Dorn on 38, also De Grassi on 38. 44, Maximilian Gunter. 46, Alexander Sims, his teammate. Mitch Evans, the Kiwi, #NotBias, 56, and 67 points for Antonio Felix da Costa. So he's slowly eking out the margin. So it's an 11-point lead at the top. And DS Techeetah with an 8-point lead as well in the Drivers' Championship. So it is all to play for, but I think you're not going to see anyone from outside that 10 really going for it, and I can't really see anyone past Stoffel on 38 now.
I think it was in Santiago. Did Max Gunter win that one, or am I mistaken on that?
Yes, yep, Maximilian Gunter.
Yeah, because I was impressed with his racecraft in that, both his attacking and defending at the end as well. Yeah, I do remember watching it, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, that was quite good from Gunter with playing the long game. So he knew that Da Costa was pushing too much and the battery was overheating. So that was, some great strategy from BMW there. I really have my hopes pinned on a Mitch Evans win, but I think Chris thinks that the Panasonic Jaguar is going to do the business. But DS and BMW do look pretty good. The Audi's looking a little bit behind, and a couple of other podcasts have sort of said that the Audi is one of the worst that they've ever produced out of the 5 seasons. So I think Antonio is the favourite now. But I guess it is either going to be Antonio or someone like Alexander Sims if he can get his mojo back from the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really best placed to predict because I'm still really Formula E is one that I don't follow it. It's just sort of I do follow it, but if it's on that kind of sport. There's too many sports on the television. That's the problem.
Yeah. There's a lot of good sport on the television. Listeners, what do you think? Once we get back racing and we know how many races there are remaining in the season, who is going to take it out? So send your predictions in. You can talk to us on @Regen Racing on Twitter or @Regen eRacing Pod on Instagram, and the website @regenracingpodcast.com.
So I was just gonna say with the whole season thing, because with Formula One they haven't started it yet and they've got a bit of time. Of course, the new Formula E season will start later this year, so it's trying to see what they can do with that. Whether they need to delay the new season, or I suppose it's like the football seasons in the UK. Normally finish in May, starting in August. I think it's that kind of scenario they've got going on there.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see what they do and the disruptions on different racing series. And of course, we've got to also think about what that's going to look like for the junior racing series as well. Whether F2 will continue this season or, lots of disruption. But thank you for listening to us. We can be found anywhere you get your podcasts. So most of the time we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Stitcher, Pandora, etc. thank you for listening to us. If you would like to donate to the show, on Red Circle, we have a donations page that you can go on, and it will go towards the artwork and the cost of keeping the website up and running. So, Josh, where can we find you all around the internet?
On Twitter, I am at Joshua_T_Kerr. My profile picture is a lovely drawing of last year's Red Bull. You can find me on the Raw. My Raw page is www.theraw.com.au/author/Joshua-Kerr. And Sportaholic, I anchor host it, so that's on anchor.fm/Sportaholic, but we're available on all the major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, etc.
Yep, there's plenty of platforms out there, so most podcasts you can find anywhere. So yes, absolutely recommend Josh's podcast, Sportaholic. It is great, and lots of different sports are covered, so definitely go and give that a listen. Shout out to Chris. Keep working hard, mate, and hopefully you're back for the next one. And thank you, listener. Thank you for listening to us, and keep safe out there. All right, catch you later. Thanks, bye.
Oh, bye.